Yeah, so hi everyone. As Becky said, I'm Hayley and I'm Closer's Metadata Manager. And the webinar will be focusing on close discovery and in particular highlighting the recent redesign. So the webinar will be in 4 parts. The first part will be an introduction to Closer and Closer discovery. The second part will demonstrate the changes that we've made to the site based on feedback we've received. The third part will be a live demonstration of some of the key features of Discovery. And then the final part would be a Q&A session. So as Becky said, please feel free to add your questions as we go along in the chat. Or if you can think of anything specific that you'd like to see in the demo, then please add that as well. Okay, so firstly, what is Closer and Closer Discovery? So I'll just give a very brief introduction to what Closer is, just in case there are people who are unaware of what Closer is or does. So it is a UK partnership of longitudinal population studies, the UK Data Service and the British Library. So we're funded by the Economic and Social Research Council, and this is our mission: to increase the use, visibility and impact of longitudinal population studies, data and research. And if you want to know more about Closer, then there's a link and QR code there. But briefly, our main areas of work include data discovery, training and capacity building, policy and dialogue, and these are some of our key Closer resources. As you can see, it includes close discovery, and we've got lots of other kind of hubs and websites there as well. So when the Closer project first started, information about the longitudinal population study data was spread across different sites in different formats if it was available at all. So it could be complicated and time consuming to try and find the data and then to try and understand it. So Closer wanted to develop a tool which could meet the complex needs of modern research. This snip is from a recent Closer animation, which gives an introduction to close discovery. So if you want to see the full video, the link is there. So this is where close discovery comes in, which is the UK's most comprehensive research tool for longitudinal population studies. So on a basic level, it is a kind of question and variable search engine. But it's much more than that. It's an innovative, world-leading infrastructure with enhanced metadata and advanced functionality. So this means it contains a huge amount of structured information or metadata. And it also means that it's flexible in the way that it's used in order to cater for different audiences and for different stages of the research journey. So if you are more familiar with using spreadsheets or PDFs, it might be a bit of a change to move to Closer discovery because it can be a bit more tricky to start off with, but it should make your life easier and save you time. And so I'm going to next move on to a summary of some of the kind of key benefits for researchers and data managers using Discovery. So starting with the researchers. So firstly, all the information about the longitudinal population studies are all in one place, and they all use this standard topic list. So that means that users know where to go. It saves time and as they don't need to go to different sites, and it helps with cross-study comparisons. Not only because they're all in one place, but because we have this standard topic list as well. There is consistent high-level information, which can help users to get to know a study. And there's also consistent detailed information, which enables searching at this variable and question level. The variable provenance is provided, so users can understand the context of the data. And lastly, researchers can assess the data to determine the usefulness of it before going through the requests process or downloading the data. Again, potentially saving time there. Moving on to the potential benefits for data managers. So researchers can browse and explore the data in Discovery before contacting the study, which may reduce the amount of back and forth between the two. It could reduce knowledge loss as key information is documented, and this could be a particular risk for longitudinal population studies as they span or can span decades, and so there is more potential knowledge loss risk through staff changes or relocation just because of that long time span. All of the information is documented using an international metadata standard, and there is an API available for interoperability. So using a metadata standard also ensures that this is future-proof, as it will be independent of changes in technology. Okay, so now that I've highlighted some of the key benefits, I'm now going to talk through some of the key features of Discovery, which will hopefully should demonstrate some of these benefits in action. Okay, so firstly, here are all our partner studies, which are currently in close discovery. So you'll notice that we have the national birth cohorts, we have the UK household panel study, and we have some regional studies as well. And you can see the time span of the studies on this diagram. So we have all information about these studies in one place. And I'd just like to use this opportunity to give a shout out and a thank you to all of the studies that have contributed to adding their content to Discovery so far. So thanks to these studies. Okay, so Discovery contains this high-level metadata about these studies, as I've just shown, including the sweeps or waves, data collections, data sets, which means you can browse those, which is useful to get to know a study. It also has detailed level metadata about the questionnaires, questions, and variables, which you can then search on. And then finally, we have this controlled vocabulary of topics, which questions and variables are mapped to, which you can explore. One of the unique aspects of Discovery is that we have documented the whole data collection questionnaire. So this is how a study most often collects information about the participants. So here you can see an example on the left of what a questionnaire looks like in Discovery in comparison to the original PDF, which is on the right, which is also linked. And this allows the whole questionnaire to be searched. We also think it's important to have the responses and the routing included alongside the original question. So this could be used to work out the population of your data without having to cross-tab or search through PDFs, which should save some time as well. So you see that we include the question information in Discovery as part of the questionnaire as a whole. And here we can see on the left what if we were just looking at a single question as an example. So we have here, it has information about the question text and also contains instructions and the responses. It also contains a link in the tab to the variables which were generated from that question. And that's through the related variables tab there. And this is the case the other way around. So on the right, we can see an example of a variable. And this links back to the original source question, providing that additional provenance. So the variables contain summary statistics, including frequencies, and this is what allows users to make that informed decision about the usefulness of the data. And then they can make that decision before they spend time requesting or downloading the data. And so you'll note that Discovery doesn't contain any data itself. So it only contains the metadata. So that is the context of the data, which allows you to find the data and also to understand it. Lastly, if you create an account, you can save your questions and variables into a list, and you can publish this list if you want and share it through a persistent identifier, which is like a mini DOI. But you can also download your list in different formats, for example, in PDF and Excel. So then you can share that with colleagues or just for your own use. Right then, so moving on to the second part, which is the closer Discovery new design. So I'm wondering, has anyone used Discovery since it's been redesigned? We have any thumbs up for that? Yes, great. So a few people have. Hopefully those that have, you'll have seen an improvement in the site, but those that haven't yet, which I think is most of you, this will be a good opportunity for me to show you basically like the before and after for the new version, which hopefully should be useful. So we are always working to add additional content to Discovery and improving Discovery, like adding features and functionality. And so most recently, we wanted to improve the user experience in using the tool. So we worked with Bravand, who conducted interviews with users, and they created a new design based on feedback from those users. We then implemented that design with the software developers Collectica. And the main focus of the redesign was on the home page, the search page, and the explore pages. But there have been changes that have been made throughout the site as well. Okay, so if you are interested in the design process that we went through, there's a link at the bottom, which is a blog that has just been published today, which spells out some of those processes and details. So now we'll go through the main feedback that we received and how we went about addressing that feedback. So as you can see here, this is an image of the previous Close Discovery homepage in the middle. And then we have some feedback that we received from some of the users. It was generally quite negative. So generally, most people who went to the site found it a bit overwhelming, and users didn't really know where to start, mainly because there was too much text and too much links, and it wasn't really obvious what the important bits of information on the site were, or what the kind of key kind of features were that they needed to use. The site was also said to look dated as well. The other bit of feedback related to this was that when people were stuck, they didn't know where to get help. And this was because this was hidden in the corner of the site, and so people didn't notice that there was help there. And this is the new home page now. And we think this addresses some of the feedback, as we think it's much more cleaner and clearer, and it emphasizes some of the key features more clearly. So for example, we have the studies with their logos more obviously, and we have the topics also on the home page listed. The help is also more obvious, where we have that front and center of the homepage, but we also have it in the footer as well, so people can find it wherever they are. We receive feedback on the filtering feature, and so we have filters on the search page, which is on the left, and the explore page, which you can see an example of the filters at the bottom there. So we found that the feedback related to them being quite tricky to use. So particularly on the search page, the filters were kind of squashed in the corner, were quite clunky and tricky to use, kind of squashed. And in the explore filters, we had these icons that people didn't kind of realize what the icons were or what they did. So in the latest version of the interface, we have improved the filters. So you can see we have the search filters at the top, and underneath that we have the explore filters. And so these are much easier for people to see and understand what they are, and should be more obvious what they do. So we're less reliant on icons and more spelling things out. They're also less hidden as well. Feedback on user accounts that we got was a bit concerning, as users didn't realise that they could create an account or they could create a list. And so this was partly because where you sign up for accounts, again, was quite hidden. So this was, if you look on the left, you can see at the bottom of the page, the little head icon. And so that is where all the account information was. And then if you wanted to add things to a list, you can see at the bottom right here, we have an example variable, and the plus was the icon that you needed to click on in order to add to your list. However, people again didn't realize that they could click that plus, and if people weren't logged in and they hadn't created an account, they wouldn't see that plus at all and wouldn't know that list feature existed, which was not great. So we have improved this in the new version. So now these search results spell out more obviously this feature to add to a list. And this is when you are logged in or when you're not logged in. So you can see the example at the top is from a variable in the results page where someone isn't logged in yet. So it explains to them that if they log in, that they can add that to a list. And if they are logged in, then the box is like a tick box and it says add to list. So it's much clearer, hopefully, that people can create a list and add to a list. The account information, as you can see in the bottom corner, is still the head icon, but it's now at the top of each page. So it's less hidden in the corner. So hopefully that will be more obvious for people where to go. Okay, and then lastly, we have improved how users can provide feedback. So discovery is still improving and we still have updates to make. And so we welcome feedback from users, and we've made this easier by having the link to feedback is now more obvious and it is at the top of every page. And this link will send you to a feedback form. So previously we just had an email address that people could send feedback, but hopefully now this will make it easier. So if you have used Discovery before, and some of you have indicated that you have, and you have suggestions on how we could make the research tool easier to use or more features, or if you spot any bugs, then please use the QR code here or the link, and that will take you to the feedback form. So yeah, we would appreciate that. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to the live demo. Okay, so hopefully now you can see the new, redesigned, new and improved closer discovery interface. And hopefully you'll all agree that it does look improved from the previous site. So now I'm going to talk through the different ways that you can navigate through discovery. As I mentioned previously, you can think about this in terms of 3 ways: through browsing, exploring and searching. And I'm going to take you through those ways. But on the way, I will be doing some kind of detours with some a bit more advanced kind of information as we go. So if you are unfamiliar with how to use Discovery, then I would recommend looking at previous videos and the how-to guides that have more of a kind of simple step-by-step guide on how to use Discovery. But I'm hoping here I'll be able to delve a bit deeper into what things might be useful for you to use it for your needs as well. Okay, so imagine that Close Discovery is a massive encyclopedia for your data. So it contains all the information that you need to know about your data. And imagine it is like 25,000 pages of information. So you've got a stack of pages of information. It's about, say, 15 books of War and Peace. So good chunk books, 15 stacked on each other. So it's a huge amount of information and is about how much content is in Discovery. So there's quite a lot to navigate and find your way through. So imagine in real life that you had that stack of pages. How would you divide up those pages in order to make it easier for you to find that information? So if you just had stacks of single pages on top of each other, put in the chat if you can think of ways that you would organize it in order to make it more manageable to use. Just going to have a look in. Yeah, so we've got alphabetically, we've got chapters. Anything else? I kind of mentioned the one topic. Yeah, I mentioned kind of chapters. Yeah, by theme. Yeah, all good answers. So the first one that I was thinking of, as I mentioned, books, was firstly just put on all your pages into books. And then, as a couple of you mentioned, then within the books, you have your chapters. So then imagine you have your shelf full of your books, and you wanted to find that information that was relevant to your research. So you would look at the book cover, read the information about it, then look at the contents page and look at what chapters were in there and look through and see if there was anything relevant before you went to that chapter. So you can think about that as like browsing those books, and we can do a similar thing in Discovery. So instead of books, we have our information organised by study. And within those studies, we have our sweeps and waves, which are like our chapters. So if I go to a study that I want to know more about, I can essentially like read the cover of the book. So I can read through this study information, see what kind of data this study kind of collects and see if this is relevant to me. Then I can look through the sweeps or waves again, see if what kind of data is collected, see what the population is, the coverage, the funders, the data sets and the questionnaires. And say I even want to browse a bit more detail, I could click on a data set. I can see the number of respondents and the variables that were in there. And I could even browse the topics of that data set. So I could see this data set covers these topics. If I go back and I think this data set is something that I am interested in and I want to download it, you notice it has data set location. And this link will take you to where you can request or download that data. And so we have a DOI here that takes you to the UK Data Archive. And so if you click that, you can create an account and register and download that data. Okay, so that's how we can think about like browsing. The other thing we could do is if you already know the information that you want to look for, then knowing this structure, as I've just shown, will help you navigate straight to that. So say, for example, you already have a data set. For example, if you have the 1970 British cohort study, you have the data set for the first wave of data of collection, and you want to know or you want to see the questionnaire that went with that. So now I know how this is organized. I can go to the study, I can go to the first wave, and then I can go to that questionnaire. And then you can see the whole questionnaire is documented here, including all the statements, the sections, the questions, including the responses and the routing. And then if something I wanted to look at in more detail, I can just click a question. And you can see this should look familiar as the example we saw earlier. So you can see the question, where it appears in the questionnaire, the variable that was generated from that questionnaire, including these summary statistics, and I can see the topic that it's been assigned to. If I go back, I can see a simplified version of that. I can see a link to the PDF, and I can also see the original questionnaire as well. Okay, so that's how you could browse. But as you'll have noticed when we were looking through that, these studies have collected and generated a huge amount of information and data, even within their waves. And so we need another way to find the information. And so if we go back to the book analogy, and it was kind of hinted at in some of the chats that people have put in by theme and by topic and alphabetically, is that a book normally has, well, a lot of books have indexes. And so there's different types of indexes. One of them could be a subject index or a thematic index. And so Discovery has something similar to that. As I mentioned earlier, we have this control vocabulary of topics. So if I scroll down, I can see here, explore the questions and variables by topic. And I can click on one of these topics. So I'm going to choose health behaviour. And this is the explore page where we can see we're in health behaviour topic and we're looking at variables within that topic here. So we can see this is the variable label, we have the variable name, and we have where the variable can be found, like what the variable is part of. We can switch views, so we can switch from variables to questions, which has a similar layout where we have the question text, we have the question name, and where that question is. On the left, we have our list of topics, and this is like can be considered like a file directory, as you can see. So we have our top level, like high level topics, and then within those folders, we have our subtopics. So I'm going to click on smoking. And so the way this works is that each question and each variable can be found within one of these folders. So does anyone smoke regularly in the same room as you? Will only be found within this smoking topic. It won't be found with any of the others. And this is because the topic has been selected for what the original question or variable was collected for. And this is what the study has chosen as the most appropriate topic for that. Okay, so I can look through here, and if there is anything here that I'm interested in, I can click on it again. This page should start looking familiar to everyone now. We can see all this additional information, and I can added to my list. And you can see up here, lists now has increased to 1. If I find that I have too many results to look through, then I can choose to filter them here at the top. And so say you've already been browsing, you know which study you're interested in, you can filter by study, or you can also filter by life stage. And these are brackets of ages, and they will filter the results for when the age of the cohort member, basically. So when the data was collected, it'd be the age of that main cohort member. So I can do early years and filter that. And now I can see a much more manageable number to look through. Okay, so if we go home, so we've been looking at explore by topic, which we've selected a topic through here, but we can also go straight to the explore page itself if we wanted to. And this includes very simple instructions on how to use it, and it also has a link to a short video, which might help you get started. Okay, so the other type of index that you might have in a book is one related to the words found in the text. Or if you had a digital book, it would be like the find function. And so we have the equivalent of this type of thing with the search function or the search query. And we have this on the home page, which you can use. So I can type my search query in here, and I can choose my results to be either variables or questions. So say I'm a researcher who's interested in social media use for adolescents. I might just put in social media and see what results I get. So I'm going to search for variables. Okay, so the way this search works is it's searching for social and media, so both words together. If you want to do more advanced searches, just have a look at the syntax box here, and you can see some examples of some of the other ways that you can search. For example, you could use or use the exact phrase, for example. The terms that we use here are common ways that you could search, for example, in a library or for a journal. And the things that it will be searching for will be the variable name, the variable label, the question text, and the topic as well. So we can see in our results below here that we're just seeing variables because we have that selected. This is the variable label where you can see it's found social media in the variable label. And then underneath we can see where the variable is from. So the study, the sweep, and the data set. And again, you can see we've got this add to list. So if we're interested in these, I can add them to my list. So let's go through. We can see these are all quite similar. They've all got social media in the variable label. I wanted to show you an example where it doesn't have that. So in this case, we only have media. So if you come across this in your own results, you might think, why has it picked this up? It's only got media in. So we'll go and have a look at it. So this is the variable description page. So we've got the summary statistics. We have the representation, so the response, which doesn't have social media in anywhere. And we also have the variable groups, which is a topic. So it's picked up the social from the topic. So that's where we've got the social media. Both of those are included related to this variable. You may have noticed in this example, it doesn't have the source question. So that could mean that it might not have a source question, which is very unlikely in this case. But it might be that the question or questionnaire has not been added to Discovery yet. So that's something to bear in mind when you're looking at your search results, is that not everything is included in Discovery yet. So we've been working through chronologically to add content to Discovery. And so if you want to find more information about what is included, I'd recommend going to the FAQs. And we've got a section here, what is included in Discovery. And so this study coverage page will give you that information about whether the questionnaire is included and whether the data set's included. So this is simple yes or no. So the one that I was looking at was from ALSPAC. So if we scroll down, it was from the latest from COVID. So you can see we don't have the questionnaires yet in for that, but we do have the data sets, which should hopefully still be valuable. Okay, so let's go back to our search results page. So we've looked through these, we've added some to the list. And here is another example which doesn't have social media in at all in the variable label. But here we go on the variable description page. As you can see, summary statistics again. We've got the representation, so the responses, no mention of social media here. We have our source question, and so this variable comes from this question. And we can see the question text here has social media. So you can see how this might be beneficial to have this question text associated with the variable. So if I didn't have this, then it wouldn't have picked up this variable. This variable may or may not be relevant or useful to us, but there will be occasions where you have your the question text will contain that extra information to help you find that relevant variable. Partly because the variable labels can be constrained in their length, and so you cannot fit that much information in there. And so having the original question text alongside that not only provides the context, but allows us to do that search as well. Okay, so let's go back. Right, so I mentioned before that I want to do research on social media use in adolescents, but I didn't actually filter on adolescents. So let's go and do that now. Okay, so I don't actually have any results. I have 0 results in adolescents. I'm going to filter anyway, so we can see there's no results here. So that could mean there aren't any results for social media in adolescents. I think that's unlikely. More likely is this words that we've chosen to search for are not quite right. And so we need to think of other kind of terms that we could use. So feel free to make some suggestions in the chat. But in the meantime, I'm going to try and search for social online just to have another try. Okay, so now I've got 11 results, so that's a bit better. So I can look through these. I can see that these look more related to just internet use in general. Although I've got something here about social networking and here about social networking, the others don't seem that relevant. So this has given me a clue that maybe social networking is what I need to search for. So this is just to demonstrate that you think about searching in Discovery like you would search for relevant journal articles. So you might need to try several different times or several different words to capture kind of all the results that you need. Also bear in mind that the search terms or the words that people have used to mean things might have changed over time. So as I mentioned earlier, obviously these studies span decades over time, and so the terms and words that we use also might have changed over time. And this obviously applies to the question wording that people have asked the participants, but it also could also relate to the data management as well, and how we have named things in that way. So like variable names and labels might also have changed over time as things move on. So let's just search for social network. Okay, so now we've got 78 results. This looks a lot more promising. We've got mentions of actual social media accounts, so let's add those. Again, scroll through, see what's relevant. This top one looks promising because this is social network total score. So let's go and have a look at that one. Okay, again, this should be looking a bit familiar now. So we've got the variable description with the summary statistics, we've got the responses, and we've got lineage this time that I don't think we clicked on previously. So it looks a bit more complicated, but we can see we've got the variable at the top that we're looking at, and then we've also got variables and questions underneath. And this shows us that these variables make up this derived variable, basically. So these questions and variables are used to derive this one at the top. So if we take a look at this in more detail, have a read of these questions and variables, they seem to be like, how many friends do you have? Do you talk to your friends? Do you get help from your friends? These look like they're more related to like in real life kind of friends and networks rather than online social networks. So they don't look, this variable doesn't look that relevant to us anymore. But we wouldn't have necessarily known that judging just solely on the variable label. We needed to have that additional kind of provenance to understand how this variable was generated. And you can see this is uses social media, social network for real life, where we do have examples of social networking and networks being used for online. And this is within the same study as well. So bear in mind the different uses as well that could happen with the same terms and words. Okay, so if I scroll down a bit more just to see what else could be useful here. As I'm going through, I'm looking at where the variables are from, and I can see that there's quite a few that relate to this data set internet use. So I might think, okay, that data set seems like it could be useful for me. Let's just go and have a look at that data set. And then I can look through the variables here. Again, I can click on these for more information. Or I might think, I want to go and have a look at the questionnaire for this internet use questionnaire. So I could do that by going to this variable page again. I can go to source question, go down, and I can view the complete questionnaire. So now we're back to the questionnaire view. I can look through this, and I can see there's a whole section on social networking. So now I can look through these questions and think, oh, are these going to be valuable and relevant to my research? If they are, I can add it to my list here. Okay, so you can see how there's different ways just within the kind of search results and search function to help you find that relevant or useful information for your research. I've shown how you can do that straight from the home page, but if you click the top search in the corner here, you can also search from here. Just has some very simple instructions on how you can do it, and it has the short video as well. The only difference here is that the item type isn't pre-selected. And whilst we're here, I just wanted to give a quick example of how or why you might want to search within studies and sweeps. So maybe I want to know which studies and sweeps have collected blood samples or something. So I could search for blood, and then I can see all the sweeps and waves that might have done that. And this will search for those keywords within this high level information. So this is an example here. It's found it within this abstract. And again, I can then browse around and see if this is relevant to me. I've got some data sets and some questionnaires related to that. So that could be helpful. So I just want you to think about the different ways that might be valuable to you and what you want to get out of using the tool. As I've been going through, you've noticed that I've been randomly selecting things to add to my list. So I'll quickly show you that. So at the top here, we've got lists, which I've just clicked. And now we can see all the things I've added to my list. So if you're logged in, you will be able to do this and it will save it for you. Or you can download the metadata as well. And at the minute, I'd recommend downloading as PDF because that contains all of the rich metadata associated with what you've saved. If you scroll down, you can edit the details here and you can make it public if you did want to share your list in that way as well using this URL. If we go back, probably the best way I should have done this in the first place was just to create a list at the start. So like a social media list. And then now this is my active list. It's empty. So from now on, everything will go into this social media list. So I can keep things more organized rather than having one giant list of random things, including smoking and social media, like I have. Okay, so I'm just going to wrap up here. Hopefully this hasn't been too much information overload. But if you do get stuck, then go to the how-to guides, which are here or at the bottom, or the FAQs. So the how-to guides have some simple videos, and they also have some simple step-by-step instructions as well. So as I've shown, there's lots of different ways to navigate, even through browsing and exploring and searching. There's different ways that you can use it depending on the stage you are in the research journey or your own needs, but you might need to use different methods or the best method for what you're trying to get out of it. And it might mean you need to do different techniques as well. Discovery only contains metadata, but there are links which will take you to where you can request or download the data. We're always adding new content to Discovery, so just keep that in mind, that not everything will be in there. And if you want to keep up to date for when new content is added, then you can sign up to our newsletter for that. Variables and questions appear in one topic. As I showed, that you might need to use different search terms and techniques to capture all your results. And then lastly, there are the help guides and the FAQs to help. But if you do get stuck or you've got a specific question, then always feel free to get in touch by email as well. Okay, thank you.